Here's Broadway Maven co-host Mateo Chavez Lewis on the music of the Rocky Horror Show.
Now, the most important thing to note about the music of Rocky Horror is that the music is not the point. It is not the focus of this show. You don't come to Rocky Horror to hear beautiful, lush orchestrations and complex melodies. You come to Rocky Horror to yell about toast and rain and anticipation. And there's costumes and crazy antics happening on the stage, and that's the focus of the show. It's on the entertainment value and on the production value. And so what the music does is it supports that by giving it energy, but it doesn't take away from it by being too complicated or surprising. It's very, very basic, very, very simple, so that the audience's ear isn't drawn to the music and can focus on what's happening on the stage. So I'm going to look at a few examples of that where the music is just like incredibly simple. One of them is right at the beginning. Damn it, Janet. Right? We have, damn it, Janet. Oh, Brad, I'm mad. Damn it, Janet. I love you. Right? That's how that song ends. That is 2 chords. That's it. E flat major and F major. That's it. Which are both very basic chords, just 3 notes. And then at the end we have this I love you. That ending little riff is literally just a major scale. Do, ti, la, so, fa, mi, re, do. That's all it is. It's just major chord, major chord, major chord, major chord, major chord, major chord, and then scale. And that's the whole, last minute of the song. That's it. But the hope is that then the characters are not just standing on stage singing. They're doing things. There's choreography, there's physical comedy happening, and that's the focus. So the music doesn't take away from that because you're hearing this just 2 chord loop. Your brain kind of starts to tune it out and focus on what's actually important, which is what's happening on the stage and not what you're hearing. So the music gives it the energy of having music behind it and having drums and everything, but it doesn't take away from it by being distracting.
The Broadway Maven is the only free weekly Broadway appreciation course you'll find online. Every week we look at topics as diverse as Wicked, Mel Brooks musicals, and Gershwin on Broadway.
Furthermore, obviously, there's Time Warp, right? Time Warp is also deceptively simple. Time Warp has a little bit more of an interesting chord progression where we go A, then to B, then to G, and then to D, back to A. And what's kind of interesting about this is that these chords don't exist in the same key signature. So usually, if we're in A major, right, which we are, you would have a G sharp. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. That's a G sharp. But instead, we're getting a G natural. So it would sound like if there was a G natural in A major, it would sound like this. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, which is not exactly how the major scale sounds. But it's often used in rock music, that natural 7th instead of the raised 7th. Instead of that, we get this natural 7th, which is a very rock and roll sound. Think of this, for example. The eye of the tiger right? That song, that uses that, we're in A, but then we go to the G natural instead of that G sharp that is supposed to appear in the major scale. So we do have a little bit of rock influence in the music here. It is a little bit more complicated, but over top of that slightly more complicated chord progression, the melody compromises because the melody doesn't exist. There is no melody. It's astounding. Time is fleeting. Madness takes its toll. It's all just spoken, right? And then, not for very much longer, right? There's just this riff that is kind of improvised, and there's no specific melody in this whole section. Then we get to the most musically complicated part of Time Warp, and arguably the most musically complicated part of the whole show are these chords on Let's Do the Time Warp Again. Those chords. Let's do the time warp again, right? And the whole company is singing in harmony there, and there are these really cool chords, which none of them fit kind of in the same key signature as each other. So they have this really cool kind of dramatic rock and roll feeling because the F and the C are borrowed from A minor, so they sound minor, and the same with the G. Those are from the key of A minor, but then we have the D major and the A major, which are from the key of A major. So it's this collision of minor and major, which sounds really cool, really rock and roll, and the whole company is singing in harmony. So it's kind of the most musically complicated part of the entire show. But guess what happens on stage during these 2 bars where they're all singing in harmony and they're singing these interesting chords? The action on stage stops, right? The choreography for Let's Do the Time Warp Again is everybody on stage just going like this. And then chaos erupts again. Let's do the time warp again. So when they're singing those chords that are the most complicated music that we're hearing, we're also seeing the least happening on stage. So for those 2 bars, the attention does shift to the music, and then the music gets right back out of the way, and it's just that repeating rhythm and a totally non-specific melody. It's astounding. Time is fleeting. You're there in the time slip, and nothing can ever be the same, right? There's no melody, and so the music is getting out of the way again. And then my favorite example of the music of Rocky Horror getting out of the way is Hot Patootie, because this song it's 3 chords, B flat, C, and E flat. Although I actually think in some recordings it's up in this key, but it's the same stuff, just in a different key. Hot Patootie, bless my soul, I really love that rock and roll. And then the melody is 2 notes. 2 notes. I literally only played 2 notes there. Did you see that? You can write out the melody of Hot Patootie in binary notation. Like, it's crazy. It's so simple. It's just 2 notes, and then just 3 chords, all of which are just plain major triads, and it repeats over and 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 over. And so even if it was very complicated music, you repeat something that much, eventually your ear is going to figure it out. It's going to be done processing the information, and it can put that stuff aside and process whatever else is going on. It can kind of tune out the sound. Think about, like, if you hear your mother nagging you every single day, eventually you start to tune out the voice of your mother nagging you. It's the same thing. If you hear something repeated, you start to tune it out because you've already processed it. So the music totally gets out of the way for, like, this infinite loop of like, it repeats like 50 times or something ridiculous.
The Broadway Maven's Weekly Blast comes out every Thursday. It contains essays, reviews, YouTube gems, surveys, and more.
And that shows you how effective it can be to just get the music out of the way. So we're still repeating the music, so there's still music. It would be really weird if the whole thing happened in silence, because there's so much chaos erupting on the stage. But we don't have to listen to the music. We don't have to pay attention to the music. There's no surprises. There's nothing complicated. It's just an underbelly of energy. And then the important thing is what's happening on the stage. The costumes, the comedy, the staging, the choreography, all of this chaos happening on stage. That is what we're supposed to pay attention to. And the music does a really good job of supporting that without drawing too much attention to itself. So that is why the music in Rocky Horror works really, really well for what the show is trying to accomplish. Back to you, David.
Ooh, thank you, Mateo. I have a question, though. Tell us a little bit about the concept of a riff, because it's interesting that the guy who wrote all the riffs plays a character named Riff Raff.
Yeah, so riffs are basically in pop music when you sing a lot of notes on one syllable. So this in opera it's called melisma. There's a song from an operetta that I love called "I'll Sail Upon the Dog Star." It goes, "I'll sail upon the dog star, I'll tear the rainbow from the sky, I'll tear the rainbow from the sky." And that is what's called melisma in opera, because it's all on one word. Tear the rain. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 notes on like one syllable, basically. And that's called melisma. And riffing is very similar, but in a pop style. So often, instead of just being in one swoop, right, you get little scoops and runs and cracks and little additional flair. So if I were to do that operatic melisma, but in a pop riffing style, instead of going clean, perfect, one note after the other, I would probably go right, like going back and turning around on myself and pulsing on one note and then cracking and giving you a cry, like a that kind of sound, and going back and forth. And so that is kind of how riffing in pop is differentiated from melisma in opera, but that's basically all it is. When you think about like that whole "not for very much longer," that's a riff, because if it wasn't a riff it would be "not for very much longer," just one note, but it's not. He adds all of these vocal ornamentations. And the other thing about riffs is that 99.99999% of the time they are improvisational, or at least decided on by the singer in rehearsal.
Okay, not the director and not the composer.
Almost never.
Okay. So that's got to be one of the treats of being a singer, is being able to add your riffs. I know that people have said that an example of a melisma in a pop song is "I will always love you."
Yeah.
Right.
It's also Mariah Carey Emotions. That really high whistle note that she does, like that's all on one word.
On one word.
And it goes all the way up. Yeah.
Okay, terrific. Thank you so much. And we'll go back and we'll look at a medley of my favorite songs from the show. I guess they're simple. I like them a lot. Find them extremely tuneful. And I think the lyrics are less than inspired in some places. I think the rhymes in "Damn It, Janet" could certainly be better. But the tunes are just terrific, and I really enjoy seeing the show. I've seen it live 3 times, including once on Broadway, and then the movie multiple times. Never dressed up. I know there are people in the room who have, and I'm going to try to make sure we have time in the class for people to share their experiences with the show. And here's a video I think you'll like.